Questions?
See you next time.
We're going to go Q&A, and you guys got to kind of get the ball rolling.
How much money do you cut together at Eric's Pillsbury?
We've already done that.
Yes.
We did that so well that it got Eric thrown off the movie. But as part of the Eric Stoltz movie, from our point of view, in a production meeting, which the editors don't usually go to, that's usually for the people on the set and everything, I was invited for the first time to go to that meeting. And towards the end, Bob Gale turned over to me and said, you know, we start this movie at the end of November, and it has to come out and be released on June 15th. And he said, how are we going to do it with all of our special effects? And I said, well, Bob C is just going to have to come into the editing room after shooting at night and on weekends. And so he said, okay. And Harry and I waited, and Bob didn't come in until October, the 5th week of shooting. And he came in on a weekend, looked at all the cut material, and he said, I don't think Eric, or somebody in the room, it wasn't Bob, it might have been his wife, but somebody in the room said, I think you have a big hole in the middle of your screen. And, obviously it was Eric that was being referred to. And Bob looked to me and said, well, what are we going to do, Artie? And I said, well, if you really think that Eric is a big problem, I said, this was on a Sunday, I said, I think you should get all these cut sequences in front of our producers, Neil Campton and Bob Gale. And if they agree, then show it to Steven Spielberg, our executive producer, and if he agrees, show it to the heads of the studio. So that's what happened. But Bob said to me, he said, well, Artie, he said, I'm not all that happy with the way all those sequences were edited. And I said, Bob, don't worry about that. I said, I'll take complete responsibility for that. And you tell the people that you're going to show these scenes to that you're not all that crazy about the editing. And I said, just get those scenes out there and so that people can make a decision. Did you remember anything like that, Harry?
That's exactly right. I wasn't privileged to your conversation, but that's exactly the way I heard it. And we did bring those guys in, and they did agree with that original opinion, and they kept bumping up the ladder until they finally got to, wasn't Lou Wasserman, who was it? Tannen? Ned Tannen? Somebody.
Ned Tannen, yeah.
And they all agreed, and then the chase of Michael J. Fox began because he was the original choice, as you probably know, to be Marty McFly. And he was not allowed to do that because his production company and Paramount were producing Family Ties, and he was busy, so they didn't want to do that. So the producers came. I just talked to Mike Fenton yesterday. And, he was the casting director. He said they came to Mike and said, what do you think the Paramount and the producers of Family Ties will let us use Michael J. Fox? He said, I'll call him and see. So they made a deal. And Michael J. Fox had a few weeks left on his shooting schedule for Family Ties. And so they arranged for Michael J. Fox to be picked up in the morning by limo, driven to Family Ties on a Paramount lot. He worked the day at Family Ties. End of the day, he was taking the same limo, or maybe a different one, and driven to Universal Studios, where he worked from 6 or 7 until midnight. And the limo picked him up there, took him back home, and put him to bed. And the same thing happened for over the 2 or 3 weeks that they were finishing the shooting of Family Ties before they could have him full-time. We did have him full-time on the weekend days, though. I think he worked 7 days a week, probably, for the first couple of weeks until he was freed up to work on so-called a regular schedule.
Yes.
It's been said that Back to the Future is one of the most perfect scripts, but I think in the edit, especially the pacing, really sells all the payoffs at the start and end. Can you guys talk to, I guess, the pacing in the film and how organically that kind of came together, or was it a real sort of slog to make it work, but it does in the end?
Well, I think it's an organic slog. No, it very definitely is a slog to, go through all that footage and try things and get them right. But after you do it, you make your changes because your instincts tell you, and logic tells you that this isn't quite working the way it should be. But if you kind of sit back after a while, and the film, as corny as it might sound, does start talking to you and tell you that needs more work, it needs changes here, it's just not working. So you go back to the drawing board, or part of the drawing board for that section that is not quite right yet. So it's just an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process that's filtered through the director as well, because when we were on the lot, Bob was able to drop in to the cutting room at lunchtime or in between setups when they were doing a big camera change and lighting change. And he would look at the scenes individually, and we would get feedback from him about what could be better. And he had his hip boots on. He was slogging through it, and we were going along with him for the ride. And that's how those scenes got smoothed out. Because Bob, you may or may not know, he did say to me one time that he didn't like to see his picture all put together in a rough editor's first cut. And there's nothing rough about an editor's first cut. I hate that term. There's nothing rough about all that. The only thing rough is how badly we get treated. Bob would then be very happy to refine his scenes as we went along, so that when we got to put an entire first edit together, he had an opportunity to go over almost everything once or twice, so he wouldn't be so, I don't know what the right word is, he didn't hate it, but he didn't like it. Sometimes he would slide down in his seat when you see the first cut if he wasn't happy with the pacing.
And he wasn't always seeing, all of the scenes for the first time. One thing that we did, because we had such a tight schedule, is that when Bob was shooting on Universal stages, we moved a Canon editing machine onto the set. So when Bob was between takes, when he had any free time, either Harry or I would go over there with a couple of scenes, show them to him on the set, and get notes and go back, just to speed the whole process along, because we were so much under the gun. By the time we got Michael J. Fox on film, and we finished the film, we had 3 weeks from the end of shooting until our very first preview. And usually you have 2 or 3 months. And I have to say it for Harry and me and Bob, our first cut is pretty much the first cut that we previewed in front of an audience in San Jose is pretty much the movie that you saw. The audience just went through the roof at the end of the movie. They just cheered and cheered and cheered. So when you get that kind of a response, your burger levels have changed. It seems to be pretty good. I'm sure we was back and made little nips and tucks here and there, but it was kind of an overwhelming response to the preview.
Front row.
Hi, what was either your hardest sequence to edit or your favorite? Maybe you can talk a little bit about both.
Well, I'll start and then I'll let Artie choose his. Hardest is not the right word. Difficult, complicated, convoluted perhaps would be, I'd say, the clock tower sequence, because that was over such a long period of time, being shot piece by piece by piece and then assembled. And in order to get the sense of what we were doing, we created what we called animatics. There would be pencil drawings of what certain sections would be, so that if we had something edited, and then we'd show that, and then we put the animatic in, so we knew what came next, and then we'd have the next scene that was edited, etc., so that we get some sense of whether things were working or not. So that was probably very rewarding, and as much as it was convoluted and difficult to do. How about you, Marty?
Yeah, favorite scene, that's like coming to, you say your favorite child. But I love it, I think the clock tower sequence is a classic film scene. Harry did that, most of it, I had a little bit of input there, a few tweaks here and there. But I think my favorite piece of scene and big challenge was the action scene at the beginning of the movie that takes place right here in the mall. The attack of the terrorists on Doc and Marty. It was a big challenge to cut, but it was also just a lot of fun to get it right. And I remember being in the editing room maybe a week or two later with Bob and Ken Ralston, our our special effects editor, talking about what special effects were going to be in the scene. And we ran the scene, and Bob turned to me and said, "Now, Artie, what special effects do you see happening in the scene?" And I hadn't thought that much about it. I thought, a little bit of things going on, because I thought Bob and Ken had worked all that out. So I sort of winged it and started spouting about sparks, whatever. But it was kind of, hey, you guys, that's your job. Don't you have that worked out when you're shooting the scene on the set?
Do you have any regrets about the final product?
No.
No. Because you're here. It's become this phenomenon that we had no idea, absolutely no idea. So this is, it's a wonderful, happy occasion for us to have worked on those 3 movies and have worked with a superb filmmaker like Bob Zemeckis.
Somebody in the back row up there.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering that before Back to the Future, Zemeckis had worked with different editors on all his films. Could you talk a little bit about getting the job and continuing a working relationship with him over several movies?
Yeah, that's fate and fluky things happen. I was working on a movie at Paramount called Firstborn, and we had 2 young teenage boys in the movie. And Bob Zemeckis called up the director, Michael Apted, and said, "I'm looking for somebody to play Marty in this movie Back to the Future. Could I please look at the 2 young lead boys in your movie?" And Michael said yes. And we were still shooting the movie at Paramount, and Michael said, I don't want to send the film out of the studio. Would you please come over to the editing room and look at 4 or 5 scenes of the boys with my film editor? And so that's what happened. And Bob Zemeckis and Neil Canton and Bob Gale came over. We sat down, exchanged pleasantries, and I ran the 5 sequences for them, and there was dead silence. Nobody said anything. And to break the ice, I said, "Well, what do you think? Are either one of our boys going to be right for your movie?" And Bob looked at me and he said, "No, I don't think so. But I really like the way those scenes were edited." And I turned about 6 shades of red because, I thought, God, it sounded like I was, asking for some sort of compliment or something. And we chatted a little bit more, and Bob went away. And about 3 weeks later, he called me and asked me to come over to Universal for an interview. And he didn't hire me on the spot, and I was ready to say yes. But he said, I know you're the kind of guy who likes to go and read the script, and here's used cars, go look at used cars and see what you think. And so I faked it. I don't want to write the script. And came back. Yes, please. And, I'd love to do the movie. So, that is kind of fluky, flaky thing that happens in Hollywood. I would never have done 8 movies with Bob if he hadn't walked into my cutting room one afternoon. I didn't have an agent, and there was nobody out there saying, "Oh, hire this guy or that guy." So I got very lucky. Wes?
I think I was lucky as well. It's kind of a bit of happenstance that I would end up being another editor with Artie. Artie was hired on first, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, Artie, they were wanting to bring on somebody else, and they suggested someone that you weren't interested in using. Is that true?
That's true, yes.
And Artie and I had met several years prior. I was working at Universal Studios as a dialogue editor, ADR editor, and Artie was sitting on the stage checking ADR reels that I had cut for Jaws 2. And we just started to chat. Turns out that Artie was getting ready he wanted to rebuild his house, and I had an architect because he was rebuilding my house, and we talked about architects and recommended this man, and he ended up doing Artie's house as well as mine, which developed a friendship between Artie and myself. And over the years, we just remained friendly. Then when they were looking for somebody else, I assumed that Artie mentioned my name, and they gave me a call to come in. Well, first of all, Artie wanted to know what my last picture was, because he was not going to recommend me. He wasn't saying he was going to recommend me, but he wanted to see what my last work was. And I said, well, I just finished Children of the Corn. So he went to look at it. Some fans, too. And he went to look at it, and I guess he assumed that I knew what I was doing based on what he saw. So he was willing to put my name forward. And that's how I got to meet Bob Gale, Neil Canton, and then Bob Zemeckis. And they said, okay, here's the script, you can have the job. And they wouldn't let me read the script beforehand. They didn't want the script out. I don't know if you know, but all the scripts were numbered. With every page had a number on it. And if that numbered page got out anywhere in any kind of publicity or anything, you were fired. You were not going to be on the movie. So everybody had this secret thing about the script. So I took it home and read it and couldn't believe that there was such a good script that I was going to get a chance to work on. It was great. And just by chance, Artie and I talked about architects. Hey, send over to Plaid shirt. Yeah, got it.
Were there any scenes that were hard to see you be cut or were overridden by law or anything? Or any choices throughout the film?
We hardly dropped anything, did we, Artie?
I don't recall that they dropped any scenes.
We cut the Darth Vader scene down, made it shorter.
What was that, your question?
Yeah. I just wondered if there was anything that was kind of.
I don't think there's anything, lying on the cutting room floor that I recall that was, didn't work or was, absolutely terrible.
And from the Eric Stoltz 50 minutes or whatever we had put together, and all the material they'd shot over the 5 or so weeks, we didn't use anything of that. We started completely over. I think maybe 1 or 2 shots we were salvageable, and I mean, that's not an exaggeration. 1 or 2 shots that we were able to reuse.
For Brad Bass.
How do you feel about the transition from working physical film to the more digital era?
Working on physical film to working in digital?
Yeah.
I feel sorry for people who did not have the opportunity to learn to manipulate film. And secondly, I'll say I don't want to go back. I started working digitally in the early 90s, and I just like undo. I just think that's
Yeah, that undo button was every film editor's favorite button. You know what undo used to mean, having to take the slices apart and start all over.
And look for that piece that was stuck on the bottom of your shoe.
Undo was great. The only thing that I regretted about the move to digital is that I never knew, you know, the tip of the iceberg. I knew how to do my job, I knew how to edit, I learned how to edit digitally, but I didn't know what all of my assistants were doing to get that material to me, and then once the scene was cut, I didn't know, you know, technically, you know, with all the terminology, what happened to it afterwards. Whereas
Cameraman.
with films, it was straightforward.
Cameraman.
You were talking about the undo button. When you're actually splicing film and you decide later that you need an extra frame or two, how did you do that? Or did you not make a splice until you were 100% sure?
You would make trims and you'd save those little pieces, and that's why I was joking, saying sometimes those little pieces got lost on the floor, and you'd be sometimes spend 15 minutes, your assistant and your apprentice, trying to find those damn 2 frames.
You know, that's one of the things that usually takes so long in cutting film is, you know, you change your mind, the director has another idea, he wants to try other things, and with just a little thing like that, you say, well, I want to extend the cut 2 frames, and you've got to undo the splice, you've got to find those 2 frames, you've got to splice it back together, and then 5 or 10 minutes later, you've done that, and you look at it and you say, well, that's not right. I could add more frames, or it was okay the way, it was better the way it was. So yeah, it was just a time-consuming process. Here on the right.
Barry, I remember you telling me how you would divvy up the action scenes with you doing the clock tower and Artie you doing the parking lot, Twin Pines Mall. With part 2 and 3, were you still able to kind of throw scenes back and forth together, or was it more of just a free-for-all because they were being filmed back to back?
No, as I remember, we were doing that, swapping scenes back and forth, and you know, picking out a complicated action scene that I could do, and then you did So, you know, sometimes, because that was a big, long, extensive scene, I would just take whatever scenes kept coming in, kept being filmed, and Harry would be able to have all that time to concentrate on that action scene and until it was ready to shut off. And we had time to, you know, start sharing scenes again.
Yeah, I remember
That's basically how it worked. You know, the big action scenes we divided up, and then the smaller dialogue scenes we just kept swapping as they came in, and as each one of us had time.
I remember speaking to you, Artie, when I first came on the show, and you said, we're already shooting this parking lot scene in the mall, and you said, this is a big, complicated one. You can take the next one. And that's what happened. That's how I got going back and forth. And it worked out to be a very good plan, because in 2 and 3, Artie said, well, why don't we just do the same ones all the time, the ones that were recurring, since we each had our experience of making those particular scenes work. Let's continue to do that. And I thought that was a very good solution to a problem of solving problems that would come up similarly because of the same kinds of actions taking place. And I thought Artie was happy with that, and so was I.
I'm an editor as well, and I hate when I've done something that I really like, and the director comes in and wanted to change something. And do you remember if you had a situation where you had edited something and you really liked it, and Bob came back and said you had to change something?
Well, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that you know, really disliked in a big way that had to be completely recut. There might have been little trims or changes in a performance in a close-up or something, but I don't remember anything major. But maybe that's because you don't want to remember those things. You don't want to remember the really major part of the birth of a movie.
Well, then you did it right in the first.
Not necessarily the first time, but I mean, I'm not saying that Bob didn't come in and make changes, but I don't remember that there were major changes. And, you know, with Bob's wonderful scripts, you're not sitting there moving scenes around, you know, something from the middle back to the beginning and kind of changing the structure of the story of Bob's films. So beautifully written and constructed that just doesn't happen. That's pretty unusual.
And I'd say philosophically, as editors, we are there to deliver the vision of the director, not to take on our own ideas and make them run with them. Because I always felt like, early on in my career, I would be a little bit upset about directors telling me what to do, and I lost a job or two because of that. And so I just came to the realization that it was my job to deliver their vision. And it became ultimately easier because if I did it my way, it might be great. Then he came and showed the director. He said, well, why don't you do it my way? So I do it again. That's number 2. He said, oh, your way was good. Put it back. That's 3 times I'd have to do it rather than just do it his way first and then show him another way, my way, and then it's 2 times. He said,
Alvin the Black Shirt.
The skateboard scene and the kissing scene just after by later on a bit. How did you approach those when the dailies came in constructing using the script? What was the rhythm that you got? The 2 scenes absolutely.
Well, Harry, you were the skateboard scene. Which kissing scene?
When George was flying, has laid out a bit. And then
Oh, I don't remember who did that. Did I? That was 30 years ago. I knew I should have looked at the movies before I came here.
I remember when he came up with that idea to have him spin around twice instead of just once. And it was very, very effective. That was his idea, not the director's. The skateboard chase was a little different because that was, again, one of those situations shot over many days. And with Bob having the opportunity to do it once with Eric Stoltz, and then again with Michael J. Fox, he came up with different ideas. Not different ideas, but supplemental ideas to make this sequence better. And even after we were putting together the Michael J. Fox thing, came up with some other ideas about, I remember watching it with Dailies one day, and somebody else was in there, Bob Gale or Neil Canton, said, yeah, Bob said, well, maybe we could just, why doesn't that skateboard spark when he does, he puts it down? So he said, yeah, let's do that. So they put that on the schedule for the next day to do the close-up of the skateboard going, making sparks and stuff, and they had to work it out. So that was kind of a situation where a sequence is evolutionary because of the constant reevaluating of what you're seeing and the luck of having the time and being on location where you could recreate that immediately without having to go. They say they were shooting at something with Twente Hill Mall and they had closed this down. They had to come back and shoot some, 4 weeks later. That would be a horrendous job for them to recreate something here. They wouldn't be able to do it. They'd say, well, we just won't do it. Way up there, right.
Did you guys work closely or at all with DEPs on set to help with monitors and tracking shots?
I did. Did you, Artie?
No, I never had any, direct contact with Dean Cundy, except in, sitting there in the daily. I don't remember ever saying, why did you shoot it like this, or should we have a close-up here? Again, Bob Zemeckis is there, and the material that we got seemed right from, the directing point of view and the way it was framed and everything the team gave us. I don't recall that we ever had any quibble with team's good work.
Did we? No, that's not going to be there were any conversations. The woman way back in the center upper.
How did you guys get into editing the film?
How did we what?
How did you get into editing?
Oh, editor.
Oh, that's kind of complicated. My father was a film editor.
That's not the story.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because you know that I had a foot in the door because of him. But he said, don't ever get into the business. He told me, it's just too darn hard. And, as a kid, I saw the ups and downs and the layoffs. Because he worked at RKO in the 30s, he worked at Paramount in the 40s and 50s, he later worked for Jerry Lewis, and most importantly, he did 5 or 6 movies with the wonderful Billy Wilder, including Sunset Boulevard and Sun Like It Hot. Being around the business almost all my life, and he would take me into the cutting room occasionally. I'd wander around Paramount Studios and go on sets and see the fantastic interior of the house of Gloria Swanson and Sunset Boulevard, the Mount Sinai of C.B. DeVille's 10 Commandments. It was just all kind of magic to me, but I didn't want to be a film editor because I didn't want to be locked into one of those awful cell-like rooms. I used to see my father work at Paramount.
Can I say one interjection?
Yes.
And Artie always puts in his contract that he has to have a window in his cutting room.
And as I moved along, I also had to have a sofa in my cutting room for that afternoon nap. Again, my father would say, go off and do something like sell insurance. And I went to the University of Santa Clara because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I was a great reader, and I thought, well, maybe I could become a writer. So I was an English major, and then I graduated, took a trip to Europe, got activated with the Air National Guard at the time of the Vietnam War to avoid it. And I ended up, after my military commitment, so to speak, went to Spain to look for a job with a friend of my father's who was working in Madrid on Samuel Bronson movies like El Cid and The Fall of the Roman Empire. I didn't get that job. I went down to the Costa del Sol for a couple of weeks of recreation because I had very little money left. And I got a job in a Berkeley school teaching English to the Spaniards. Then I got another job in a private school up in the mountains of Andalusia in a beautiful town called Ronda. And I worked there for almost 2 years until my father died. And that's when I came home. And 10 days after his funeral, 2 of his former assistants called me and said, Artie, there's a job at Paramount as an apprentice. Would you like it? Well, I was flat broke, and I said to myself, well, I'll give it a year until I get back on my feet financially, and I got hooked.
My story is, I went to UCLA graduate school in film. I didn't think I would be an editor. I was just studying ethnographic film because I had been through some Peace Corps experiences where I just found how film was used in community action, community development, and education, and I wanted to pursue that. And so I was taking all the requisite classes at UCLA graduate school. I took editing. Well, I hate to say it, but I probably burned out 2 moviolas because nobody bothered to show me how to use them. You turn the sound head going one way and the picture head going the other way, and smoke would come out of these machines. And I closed the door left. And maybe some of you know and some of you don't, but in the olden days on film, in the editing class, we would get the dailies from one scene of Gunsmoke. And everybody would put it together, and that would be kind of like your practical exam. People would put it together sideways, upside down, backwards, put in funny sound effects, do it straight. And you had a 2-page script and 4 shots or something, a couple of cuts and some punches. And I still remember the lines that after Marshall Dillon knocks out the guy, he says, Chester says, I never knew Seipel could ever be beat. So that's the line that resonates in my head forever. So I was watching all these things, sitting behind the professor, he didn't know me from Adam because there were 30 of us in the class, and he wasn't much of a teacher anyway. He saw mine went up on the screen, and he said, "Oh God, that's terrible." And I shrunk into my seat and slunk back out of there, never wanted to be seen and say that was mine. And had I not gotten an A in the written exam, I would have flunked my graduate school class in editing. So I always tell that story of myself. And to say that, well, school isn't everything. You don't learn everything you need to know. Perhaps I feel like you were in film school probably to associate with people who are thinking the same things as you, as opposed to learning skills. And I just learned some practical skills doing my own editing. I did my own projects, 1 and 2 at UCLA, and I found I had a facility for editing. I liked it. And then I got hired onto a project that had to do with making some types of ethnographic films in Farmersville, California. And I ended up meeting Verna Fields, and she was my mentor for many years. And I edited 35 movies within 1 year, and that was my beginning of a career as an editor. And unlike Artie, I never was an assistant. So even when they were doing the film editing, I didn't know what the assistants were doing. So digital was the same for me. I don't know what they were doing either. Two more questions. Yes.
I read a recent interview with Bob Zemeckis where they were talking about Forrest Gump and the Back to the Future films and how much care and detail and attention went into them, and that's being lost now. Do you agree with that assessment, and why do you think it is, if so?
Well, I haven't edited the movie for quite some time, but I don't notice any less love and care going into movies. I think, even the people who make mediocre or bad movies are still passionate about what they do. At least, I still see wonderful films, and obviously there's a share of not so good films out there, but I think the young people making films these days are just as passionate as they can be, because so many of them have made the choice to go to film school because they want to become a filmmaker, and obviously they wouldn't do that if they didn't love films. They might be, not as successful as we all would hope they would be, or they hope they would be, but I think there's a lot of true passion and love. I mean, I see it all over Facebook, all over the internet.
I agree with Artie. I just think that the passion's there. The tools are a little bit different now, a little more accessible. So I think the numbers may be greater of things that look like there's not much care taken in getting them to where they are. But I still think that the people who are filmmakers and who are passionate about what they're doing and understand editing and the rhythm of editing, and that editing comes from the heart and from the head, it doesn't come from the tools. I mean, you have carpenters in the old days who had a hammer and nail and a saw, and they could build a house. And today they have power tools and they build the same house. But it's all what you want to do with it and how you bring it out of yourself. So, no, I don't agree with that.
And I should clarify the context of the comment he made was around if someone's going to watch a movie on their phone, why would you put a lot of care and detail into the, how it's cut and the effects and everything else when someone's just going to sit and watch it on the phone?
I think that says a lot more about somebody who would watch a movie on the phone.
Last question, who will that be? Way back in the last row behind. You. You're right, you. Turn it around, that's the guy. I just pointed at you. You're it.
Okay, so you guys mentioned about some of Eric's stuff being salvageable, and you also mentioned the reshoot of the skateboard scene. And I wanted to ask if you guys could elaborate on what was used, because there's rumors saying that scene where Marty punches Biff in the diner is actually Eric Stoltz, not Michael J. Fox.
That's not Eric Stoltz.
What scenes were, because you said a couple might have been?
There's nothing that I know of except one shot that I never told anybody about that I won't tell you here.
And don't tell me.
I've told nobody about it, so there's just one shot of Eric Stoltz that you, unless you got a microscope and stop the film, you wouldn't know it was him.
Is it when the fist is hitting the face and he's...
I'm not going to say that. Anything else?
You just made everyone want to watch frame by frame.
Eric Karamidas, Artie Smith.